Part 14. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 137. Rog and Sauron are beside the warships, looking up at the armed airships in the sky. At this time, the two armed airships in the air were already approaching the port area. "Look, there are two airships. They also have a lot of cannons," Luffy shouted. Chopper hid beside Usopp, watching the armed airship in the sky very vigilantly. "Are they powerful?" Chopper asked warily. "Ah, they must be very powerful. But as Captain Usopp is here, you don't have to worry," Usopp comforted Chopper. Two air-armed airships are constantly approaching, and the Victory Banner and other warships are also ready to fight with all their might. Rog looked at the two armed airships in the sky, and for some reason he felt that they were much more difficult to deal with than he thought. "I hope the fleet can win," Rog said. Ver and many officers and soldiers on the Victory Banner have already seen two armed airships in the sky above. "Commander Ver, the two enemy airships have reached the range that we can attack," an officer said. Ver waved his hand and said, "Start the attack." The order was passed on quickly, including other warships. The special anti-aircraft rapid-fire guns on the top of the three towers on the Victory Banner are aimed at the armed airships in the sky. "Fire!" The muzzles of the special anti-aircraft rapid-fire guns pointed straight towards the sky, firing shells one after another. These shells quickly drew a trajectory and approached the armed airship in the air. The special anti-aircraft rapid-fire guns on the other 7 warships also fired rapid-fire shells. At this time, on the air-armed airship number 6. And the pilots all discovered the incoming rapid-fire artillery shells. "Hurry up and dodge." 6 gave the order. The driver quickly adjusted and pulled the emergency accelerator lever. Behind the armed airship in the air, suddenly 2 cylindrical objects suddenly shot out amazing flames and jets. The hull of the airship quickly moved forward. At this time, Rog, Sauron, Usopp, Luffy and Chopper all stared wide-eyed. What? The armed airship in the sky suddenly advanced far into the sky ahead, avoiding the shells. Ver and the officers and soldiers on the Victory Banner also opened their mouths in shock. How can it be? The air-armed airship abruptly avoided the attack. It still suddenly moved forward very far. In addition to air-armed airship No. Air-armed airship No also accelerated. In the sky, the tracks behind the two armed airships have not disappeared. At this time, on the air-armed airship No. Mother's Day was very happy to see that the airship she commanded was not hit. Sure enough, this kind of special advanced weapon made by Drexus is very powerful. It can actually accelerate. But just now it was shaking for a while, and it scared me, the fat woman said without any danger. The armed airship in the air can advance like this, and 2 special jet devices are installed behind it. There is a special chemical agent in these 2 injection devices that can burn violently in a short time and produce powerful jets through these injection devices. Therefore, the armed airship in the air can use this jet device to accelerate urgently to fight and get out of danger. Rog below looked at the armed airship in the sky and felt that the enemy was not easy to deal with. Ver on the Victory Banner and the officers and soldiers around him all looked in disbelief. The enemy is already difficult to deal with, but now it can suddenly accelerate. How could there be such a weapon? Ver said in disbelief. The officers and soldiers on the other warships were also shocked beyond imagination. Originally, the enemies that could appear in the sky were hot air balloons, and airships were nothing short of remarkable. Now the enemy's 2 airships can actually accelerate ahead. Moreover, some soldiers who used military telescopes to observe discovered that the 2 armed airships just now were actually ejecting gas from their tails and accelerating forward. According to their common sense, in the past, only special rockets made of similar gunpowder could spray like this. The airship can actually jet like this. The 2 armed airships in the sky began to increase their altitude continuously. In the number 6 pod of the armed airship, looked at the warships below. Continue to raise the altitude. Anyway, we have an advantage in attacking in the sky. Point 6 said. After all, the special chemical agents stored in the injection device are very limited and cannot be used too frequently. Moreover, if the armed airship in the air uses that kind of acceleration too frequently, there is a danger of losing its balance. Sir 6, we have now reached an altitude of meters. The enemy can no longer attack us from here, a pilot said. Okay, it's our turn to fight back. Use platoon artillery to hit them first. Point 6 ordered. This air-armed airship originally flew horizontally in the sky, but now it is starting to lower to the right. Then the air-armed airship began to align the right side with the victory banner below. The cannons on the side of the pod have been loaded and can be attacked, the airship gunner reported. Okay, fire. A row of 10 50 cm caliber guns on the side of this armed airship aimed at the banner of victory. There was a rumbling sound that resounded through the sky for a while. The muzzles of the 10 artillery pieces were all flickering, and 10 shells were fired at the victory banner moored on the port below. Ver and the others just saw the flashing fire on the side of the armed airship in the sky, and some sharp-eyed people saw some shells flying over. But it was too late. 67 shells hit the deck of the victory banner. Suddenly, the deck of this powerful warship exploded. Many officers and soldiers were knocked down. Ver himself was also swept away several meters by the blast wave. It hurts. They opened fire from the air. The major was killed. Lieutenant Colonel, wake up. Someone was injured here too. Suddenly, the officers and soldiers on the deck of the victory banner became a mess. About 30 people were injured or killed. After all, because of this height and distance, the opponent's shells were a little off, and only 6 or 7 hit the deck of the warship. However, the opponent's shelling brought even more psychological impact. Such powerful volleys of artillery fired from the sky can psychologically shock the troops below. Ver stood up again, looking at the smoky deck around him. Don't panic, hurry up and prepare to fight back. And the extra personnel are evacuated from the deck, Ver ordered. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 138. The fleet officers and soldiers who received the order in the chaos hurriedly took action. Some officers and soldiers using auxiliary weapons hurriedly retreated from the deck. The special rapid-fire anti-aircraft guns on the 3 towers also immediately fired back. Aim and fire. One after another, rapid-fire artillery shells were fired at the armed airships in the sky. These rapid-fire artillery shells have a very long range, but the opponent is more than 1,000 meters in the air, and these rapid-fire artillery shells cannot reach it. Even if it can break through the height of 1,000 meters, there will be deviation and it will not be able to hit the target. The 2 armed airships were safe and sound in the sky. The armed airships in the air can now be said to be in a complete advantage. The warships below cannot attack them, but they can completely attack below. In addition to the victory banner, some other warships also hurriedly used special anti-aircraft rapid-fire guns to attack the sky. Swarms of shells exploded into fireworks in the sky. But it failed to hit the 2 armed airships. Rog, Zorro, Usopp, Luffy, and Chopper, who were at the port, all looked up into the sky. Wow, so many fireworks, Luffy shouted. But none of them can hit the target, Usopp said while wearing the goggles on his hat. Chopper looked at the sky. He was shocked by the magnificence of this sea-air battle. The 2 airships will be difficult to deal with if they don't come down, Rog also said. Sauron said nothing, just looked to the sky. The fleet launched a fierce bombardment, but the shells fired by these special anti-aircraft guns were unable to hit the 2 armed airships. The airspace below the 2 armed airships was already filled with fireworks. However, these 2 air-armed airships have already aligned their right sides to the bottom. This time, Airship No took the lead in firing from the right side. The artillery on the right side of air-armed Airship No also fired. On the warships and ports, they could only see 2 flashes of light in the sky. The deck of the Victory flag was hit by 6 more shells from the airship No. And there was a sudden violent explosion. Before the explosion was over, 7 of the 10 shells fired by airship hit the warship. The violent explosion filled the deck of the Victory banner with flames and turned it into a sea of flames. Even a tower was badly damaged. A tower at the front was severely damaged, and the 6 special anti-aircraft rapid-fire guns on it were also scrapped. "Hurry up and organize firefighting," Vere quickly ordered. The fleet officers and soldiers on the deck quickly used a special small spray device to extinguish the fire. This fire extinguishing device is an iron bucket filled with special fire extinguishing dust, which is made of special anti-combustion chemical substances. The soldiers used shake the small blower next to the iron bucket, and then the dust in the spray hole in the front is sprayed out. The fire extinguishing dust quickly suppressed the spread of the fire. After all, this powerful warship itself is strong enough, so it is more convenient to put out the fire. After successfully extinguishing the fire, Vere and the officers and soldiers rushed to fight back. "These guys are really disgusting. Let them try our special weapon. It is also the most powerful weapon. All right, let's push out the fire dragon rocket," Vere ordered. "Okay," as ordered. The other officers quickly accepted the order and carried it out. There was suddenly a violent mechanical friction sound at the front of the deck of the Victory flag. The deck made of steel and wood suddenly opened, and there was a burst of mechanical sounds in the cabin below. A heavy weapon hoisted up by the runner revealed its face. Rog and Usopp at the port also saw the true colors of the weapons. "What is this?" Usopp said in shock. "Wow, huge fireworks," Luffy said in shock. Zoro also frowned and said, "This is..." "What is this?" Chopper said in surprise. "Could it be rocket?" Rog looked at the weapon in shock. "I saw a huge long tube-shaped weapon made of a huge iron shell 10 meters long on the deck of the Victory banner. The whole body is painted with flame color. At first glance, it looks like a very sophisticated giant fireworks. But it is more accurate to say that it is a simple rocket. On the top of the rocket, there is also a dragon head sculpture similar to myths and legends. The shell of the rocket is engraved with the words made by Drexus. This is the dragon rocket, a powerful weapon capable of attacking long-range targets." Vere looked at the fire dragon rocket. This ultimate weapon was originally the final weapon of the Victory banner. It is a weapon used to attack long-range enemy large warships. But there is only one, and it is equipped on the Victory banner. Some other warships are not equipped. Like a General Navy large warship, even if it is hit by this kind of dragon rocket, it will not sink and will be severely damaged. Although it is not used to attack the sky, this kind of rocket has a long range, so it can be used to attack armed airships in the sky. "Aim at the armed airship in the sky and fire it to attack," Vere ordered. The fleet soldiers quickly adjusted the direction using the levers and wheels, and the 10-meter-long red dragon-headed rocket aimed at the sky. "Aim at the target," over the soldier using the long-range telescope's precision machine said after calibrating the target. "Emission," the officer in charge of commanding the fire dragon rocket ordered. A soldier using an ignition mechanism pressed the switch. The tail combustion fuse of the fire dragon rocket was ignited, and then the entire fiery red body trembled, and it really shot straight into the sky like a fire dragon. This spectacular sight could be clearly seen by Vere, the officers and soldiers on the deck, even the officers and soldiers on all 8 warships, as well as Rog and the others at the port, and even the residents of the kingdom's new port. A red fire dragon held up the trajectory and rushed straight into the sky. At this time, it is on the air-armed airship No in the sky. Inside the pod, Point 6 and the pilots all saw this. They were so frightened that they hurriedly used the jet device of the airship to speed up and escape. In the pod of the airship, Mother's Day's usually arrogant and calm face changed color with fear. She and other drivers also quickly activated the jets and accelerated to escape. Under the acceleration of the jet device at the tail, the 2 armed airships flew forward frantically. The Fire Dragon rocket climbed rapidly, still passing by the positions of the two armed airships just now. The two aerial armed airships did not stop after escaping the attack. They still turned on their jet devices, and one of them flew forward desperately. The Fire Dragon rocket flew to a higher sky, and finally exploded in a very high sky under the gaze of thousands of eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 139. The Fire Dragon rocket that exploded in the sky formed a huge fireball. The fire and gunpowder flickered in the sky, allowing all eyes on the ground and the sea to see clearly. Rog and Saran at the port couldn't take their eyes away for a long time. A shocking sight, Roger said with emotion. There are such weapons in this world, Saran also sighed. Luffy even pulled his head upwards vigorously, trying to see more clearly. Both Usopp and Chopper were full of surprised expressions. Usopp, this weapon is terrible, Chopper said to Usopp. This is simply a devastating weapon, Usopp said in shock. Ver and the other officers and soldiers on the Victory Banner were extremely shocked. They also knew that this weapon was powerful, but they were immersed in it for a long time after seeing such a powerful explosive power with their own eyes. A weapon that destroys heaven and earth, Ver sighed. The officers and soldiers on the Victory Banner and other warships sighed. It's actually so powerful. Terrible. The sky was shattered by the powerful explosion. This kind of weapon can really destroy everything. What an incredible weapon. Many officers and soldiers were talking about it, and many people knew that the Victory Banner had a powerful ultimate weapon. But I didn't expect it to be so powerful. In the city of Kingdom Newport, countless people saw this spectacular scene. Many people are unaware that the dragon is actually a weapon. Many residents thought that gods had appeared. Groups of residents were on the streets and in the buildings looking at the scene in shock. What is this? Could it be that the gods are angry? Heaven and earth trembled. What a terrifying explosion! A fire dragon rushed into the sky. Could it be that the end of the world is coming? Terrible sight. Could this be the wrath of the undead several years after the country's civil war? This is an ominous sign. For a time, people in Xinggang City of the Kingdom were panicked and extremely terrified. Air-armed airship No and air-armed airship No, which escaped the attack in the sky, finally stopped after running wildly for a while. The two armed airships continued to fly smoothly in the sky. In the pod of airship 1.6 and the drivers looked out the window in shock. We are still alive, Point 6 said. The burly man who had never changed his face before and had a sluggish temperament also became covered with cold sweat. The other pilots and weapons operators were even more frightened out of their wits. Although the previous attack did not hit them, the destructive power frightened everyone so much that it was difficult to get rid of the sense of fear. In the pod of airship, Mother's Day, who had always been bossy before, was so frightened that she collapsed on the deck of the pod. This fat woman's face was originally covered with thick rouge, but now it was mixed with sweat, making her look extremely funny. I survived. Only by surviving can I continue to enjoy my own beauty. Mother's Day said breathlessly. The other drivers were also staggered in fright, unable to recover. The two armed airships that survived the catastrophe were also in the sky, and they did not continue to move after a while. The reason why the two air-armed airships were able to successfully avoid the attack. In addition to the fact that the two air-armed airships are equipped with powerful jet devices that allow them to move forward at critical moments, the Fire Dragon rockets are not used for air-to-air. There are some deviations when attacking in the sky. On the deck of the Victory Banner, Ver looked at the two armed airships still surviving in the sky. It's about the same as I expected. After all, this powerful weapon is very powerful for attacking warships, but it may be different for attacking air targets. But there is still only one too little, Ver said. Although the Fire Dragon rocket is extremely powerful, only the Victory Banner is equipped with one in the entire fleet. However, the rocket produced an extremely powerful shock, allowing Ver to have time to command the warships to take the opportunity to leave the port. The Victory flag and the other 7 warships quickly raised anchor and left the port. 8 warships began to move above the sea. After all, moving targets are still relatively difficult to lock. Rog looked at the 8 warships leaving the port and said, "Now the battle has officially entered its peak." The firing of the powerful Fire Dragon rocket flying into the sky just now was the signal. "The warships have all left the port," Usopp said when he saw that the warships had all left the port. "Are they going to leave us behind?" Chopper said in horror. "Hey, don't run," Luffy shouted. "No, they want to maneuver on the sea to fight against powerful enemies in the sky," Sauron said. The 8 warships headed by the Victory Banner all started to march on the sea outside the port, and they moved irregularly. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Ver and other officers and soldiers quickly adjusted their deployment to fight. In the sky, the 2 armed airships finally started to move again. Inside the pod of Airship 1.6, his face turned gray and calm, or it could be said to be dull. All drivers and weapon operators are in tense reworks. "It's really a close call," Point 6 said with lingering fear. "Now looking at the sea below, I saw that those warships had already left the port and were maneuvering in the nearby waters. Although the Fire Dragon rocket just now did not destroy the 2 armed airships, it at least gave the warships below a good opportunity to move." "Sir 6, the warships below have begun maneuvering. Their warships are sailing erratically, obviously to avoid our attack," a pilot reported. "I see. If this is the case, our chances of attacking will be much less. But we still have to attack. Prepare the artillery row immediately, and attack alternately from the left and right sides." 6 gave the order. After receiving the Point 6 order, the weapons operators quickly began preparations. The 10 cannons on the left and right sides of the pod are loaded with shells. Air-armed airship No took the lead in tilting the right side downward again. The volley of guns was aimed at the banner of Victory below. Because the Victory Banner had the largest hull and was also the flagship, we concentrated our firepower to attack first. Fire! As the 10 cannons on the right side opened fire together, 10 shells were fired at the Victory Banner on the sea. The Victory Banner was sailing at this time, and 10 shells struck in the sky. In the end, due to the range deviation and the action of the hull, only 3 shells hit the deck of the Victory Banner. After being hit, officers and soldiers rushed to put out the fire. However, the armed airship No tilted to the left again, and the artillery was aimed at the Victory Banner again. A volley of shells came, 4 of which hit the banner of Victory on the sea. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 140. There was another burst of explosions on the deck of the Victory Banner, and the flames and gunpowder smoke continued to rise. Ver stood on the deck and personally directed the battle. "Put out the fire quickly," Ver ordered. The officers and soldiers quickly extinguished the flames on the deck. An officer walked up to Ver again and said to him, "Commander Ver, you are in danger here. Please take refuge in the cabin as soon as possible." Ver waved his hands and said, "As the commander of the fleet, I want to take the lead in commanding this battle from the front line." In the sky, the air-armed airship No began to fill the shells after firing artillery on the left and right sides. However, airship also aimed its guns at the USS Victory flag on the sea. 2 volleys of artillery were fired, and 20 shells were fired in a row. A total of 8 shells hit the banner of Victory. The officers and soldiers on the Victory Banner were still quickly putting out the fire. The Victory Banner and other warships used rapid-fire anti-aircraft guns to fight back continuously, but the shells were too high to hit the 2 armed airships. The battle was fierce, but the air-armed airship had a great advantage. Of course, the Victory Banner is not so easy to deal with. This large warship, 150 meters long, is made of steel and fine wood. The structure is also very resistant to impact. It was attacked by a total of dozens of shells just now, but it only caused damage on the deck, and the hull was still sailing on the sea fiercely. The Victory banner will not sink unless it is hit by hundreds of shells intensively. The two air-armed airships carried out more than 10 rounds of shelling one after another, and dozens of shells hit the Victory banner. However, although the deck was severely damaged, the hull was still sailing. In the number 6 pod of the armed airship, had a battle with the pilot and felt that the Victory flag was difficult to sink. What a tenacious warship! I once saw this kind of warship during the weapons procurement task of Baroque Studio. This is a top-notch advanced heavy cruiser mast warship made by Lexus. It is made of steel and fine wood. Success. The internal structure and hull design are very durable. The other party actually possesses such advanced weapons, which shows that the other party is either extremely rich or obtained this kind of warship through some means. Point 6 said with emotion. After hearing this, the driver on the side asked again, "So Mr. 6, what should we do next?" Point 6 looked at the pilot with dull but ferocious eyes, and said, "Since the opponent has a killer weapon, the one that destroyed the world just now, we also have it. Okay, let's activate the special anti-ship torpedo." After hearing this, the driver nodded and said, "Okay, as ordered." The weapon operator in the pod was also ordered to activate the anti-ship torpedo. Air-armed airship No is equipped with a new type of advanced weapon, the anti-ship torpedo, for this battle. Air-armed airship No is in a state of emergency, and we are going to drop the anti-ship torpedo at a lower altitude. The phone bug's broadcast quickly rang throughout the pod. The entire armed airship No began to lower its altitude significantly, and at the same time, the weapons, machine guns, and artillery in the pod of the airship were always on guard. Moreover, while the armed airship No lowered its altitude, it was also far away from the banner of Victory laterally. Rog, Saran, and Usopp, who were at the port, were very surprised. What's going on? The enemy's airship actually lowered its altitude significantly, Usopp said in shock. Don't they have an advantage in the air? Zoro also didn't know what the other party was going to do. Rog looked at air-armed airship No, which was constantly lowering its height. The opponent had the upper hand, but now he lowered his height significantly. This seemed extremely extreme and could not be explained by common sense. I'm afraid they are going to use some kind of special weapon. I hope Ver and the others will be fine, Rog said. At the same time, on the deck of the Victory banner, there were messy decks everywhere. Ver and the officers and soldiers all looked strangely at the air-armed airship No that was constantly descending. How is this going? The other party will actually land. What do they want to do? What is the other party going to do? Is it possible that they want to engage in a naval battle with us? Their airships, they won't park them up, and they'll just use the pods to start a war with us. The officers and soldiers were extremely shocked. Ver looked at the armed airship No that was coming down, and he had an extremely bad feeling in his heart. Prepare artillery and attack the airship, Ver ordered. The Victory banner and other warships hurriedly prepared the cannons on the side of the warship, ready to bombard. However, airship No is still more than 200 meters away from the sea. Moreover, there was an armed airship No in the sky to cover the artillery attack, disrupting the fleet's preparations. At this time, he was inside the pod of airship No. Point 6 continuously listened to reports from the drivers on the sidelines. At the same time, he kept observing the situation outside the window. Point 6 Sir, we are already 200 meters close to the sea, the driver reported. Okay, order the anti-ship torpedoes to start dropping, Point 6 ordered. In the belly of the No pod of the air-armed airship, a huge hatch opened on both sides. The huge 5-meter-long anti-ship torpedo inside was finally exposed. The shape of the anti-ship torpedo is a long tube-shaped metal object, the whole body is black, and there is a propeller at the tail. Anti-ship torpedoes are aimed at the target warship and released. 4 black anti-ship torpedoes in the belly of the pod were launched into the sea below with mechanical power. 4 anti-ship torpedoes fell into the sea, and the propellers at their tails turned rapidly. These 4 anti-ship torpedoes are also advanced weapons made by Drexus. They have a very advanced precision-made power mechanism inside, similar to a super-strong clockwork mechanism. After the special rotating shaft is mechanically rotated, it can continuously rotate the propeller. After being launched, it will continue to rotate for a while, enough to cover a distance of thousands of meters. The tops of the 4 black anti-ship torpedoes are equipped with incredibly powerful bombs, which will detonate once they hit an enemy ship. 4 anti-ship torpedoes dropped into the sea headed towards the Victory banner at an alarming speed. Vere and other officers and soldiers were shocked when they saw these anti-ship torpedoes. What are these? No one has ever seen a man-made object swimming so fast in the sea. The fighting instinct made Vere react immediately. Avoid them quickly. Vere ordered loudly. The officers and soldiers aboard the Victory banner acted quickly and turned the rudder urgently. However, this huge warship, which was fully meters long, could not turn around in time to avoid the anti-ship torpedo. 4 anti-ship torpedoes hit the hull of the Victory banner. With 4 earth-shaking loud noises, the bomb on the anti-ship torpedo exploded. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 141. After 4 anti-ship torpedoes exploded, the huge hull of the Victory banner shook violently. Vere and some other officers and soldiers on the deck suddenly staggered to and fro. The bomb equipped on the top of the anti-ship torpedo is so powerful that even the heavy steel hull of the Victory banner cannot resist it. The huge warship was damaged from the side hull by a huge explosion. Since it was the left hull of the Victory banner that was hit, the damaged hull on the left side of this huge warship caused the hull to be flooded with sea water and began to tilt violently to the left. At this time, 4 huge caves were blown out of the left hull of the Victory banner. Sea water continued to pour into the cabin from 4 huge caves. The previous explosion and the destroyed caves on the hull caused the intrusion of sea water, causing the giant ship to begin to tilt rapidly. The entire meter-long huge warship quickly fell to the sea on the left. Rog, Sauron, and Usopp are watching all this at the port. Oh my god, this is simply a destructive power that will destroy the world. Sauron looked at the rapidly tilting Victory flag in shock. Why is this happening? Could it be that Vere and the others are all? Usopp was also very nervous and looked at the heavily damaged warship. Rog looked at the extremely traumatized Victory banner. This huge warship is now in a critical state of survival. In other words, after receiving such a powerful destructive force, it can basically be said that there is no way to avoid sinking. I just hope that Vere and the others will be okay, Rog said with a serious face. Chopper was so frightened that he was behind Usopp, and he muttered, as if he was afraid of something. By the way, the Mary is still being towed behind the stern of the Victory banner. If this is the case, then the Mary will also be towed into the depths of the sea together, Usopp suddenly said anxiously. Previously, the Mary had always been tied behind the stern of the Victory banner with a strong iron chain. Now if the Victory banner sank, the Mary would also suffer. In the midst of the chaos, air-armed airship No. which had just launched a successful anti-ship torpedo, quickly rose. Because at low altitude, this powerful armed airship will also be seriously threatened. Inside the pod of airship 1.6 and the driver look out the window. Due to the rapid rise of the airship, the scenery below quickly became smaller. However, it can still be seen that the severely damaged Victory banner quickly began to sink. Report. 6 Sir, the enemy's largest warship is sinking, a pilot reported. Point 6 Skullface also showed a hint of excitement. The 4 anti-ship torpedoes just dropped successfully hit the Victory flag. It wasn't until the 4 earth-shattering explosions sounded just now that Point 6 felt relieved. Then he ordered the air-armed airship No to rise as fast as possible. After being hit by the anti-ship torpedo explosion just now and the victory banner was shocked and severely damaged, the opponent was temporarily unable to fight back. Point 6 suddenly felt the scale of victory tipping them quickly. It is indeed an anti-ship torpedo. After all, it is the most advanced weapon that Baroque Studio tried its best to purchase. It allows us to deal with such a powerful warship. Point 6 said with satisfaction. When Baroque Studio is in charge of purchasing advanced weapons, it often purchases weapons from Drexus and other high-level arms manufacturing powers. Even the publicly owned arms enterprises of the world government, they have managed to obtain the special weapons they want through various means. Among them, the anti-ship torpedo is an advanced weapon recently developed by Drexus, but it has not yet been popularized on a large scale. Even so, the Baroque Studio took great pains to buy it. It used to be used as a backup for emergencies, but I didn't expect it to come in handy so soon. In this battle, the two air-armed airships each carried 8 anti-ship torpedoes. The number of such weapons is limited and they need to be used with caution. Just now, because the victory banner was judged as the flagship, the 4 of them attacked together, mainly to deter the enemy and break down the morale of the opponent. Air-armed airship No still has 4 anti-ship torpedoes left, while air-armed airship No has 8 anti-ship torpedoes that have not been used. A total of 12 anti-ship torpedoes will be considered for use next. Of course, the airborne armed airship itself still has powerful firepower and can cooperate with these terrifying anti-ship torpedoes to fight. Connect the communication of Airship 6. I want to discuss combat with Mother's Day ordered. Yes, said a pilot in charge of communications. In the pod of the airship Airship 2. Mother's Day and the pilots and weapons operators looked at the victory flag below in surprise after being hit. It's really terrifying. That stupid guy used an anti-ship torpedo. It's really scary, Mother's Day also said in a deliberately pretentious way. In the battle just now, air-armed airship No was only covering fire in the air, and did not take the risk of dropping anti-ship torpedoes like air-armed airship No did. Mother's Day, sir, armed airship No is here for communication, a pilot reported. Okay, open the communication. Mother's Day blinked Rouge's eyelashes and said. Hey, it's Point 6. Just now I saw that the enemy's largest warship was hit. It seems that it will sink to the bottom of the sea soon, Mother's Day said. The opponent's core warships are definitely going to sink. However, the opponent still has 7 warships, and these warships are also very large. They are all warships that reach about 6 meters. I have 4 anti-ship torpedoes here, and they haven't moved yet. So we will use these 12 anti-ship torpedoes to cooperate with each other to destroy the remaining warships, said. In the communication. After Mother's Day listened, she said, no problem. Let's release anti-ship torpedoes alternately. It's no problem to cover each other that way. But how to use these 12 anti-ship torpedoes? So we need to use them sparingly. In fact, every remaining warship will gradually sink if it hits the hull with 1 anti-ship torpedo. The remaining warships will use more anti-ship torpedoes as appropriate. After all, we still have a lot of airships. The powerful firepower of the airship can supplement the attack. Even if the enemy warship is hit by an anti-ship torpedo, it will slow down and basically can only stagnate on the sea. In this way, it becomes a fixed target. Let the powerful firepower on the airship attack. 6 told the specific tactics. After listening to it, I am also very happy on Mother's Day. Very well, you are really smart. Let's do it, Mother's Day said. In the Baroque Studio, Mother's Day has always thought that his partner, Point 6, is a dull guy. However, during today's action, she was convinced by Point 6's powerful wisdom. The 2 armed airships continued to prepare to attack other warships. On the victory banner, this crumbling large warship is about to sink. On the very tilted deck, Ver and other officers and soldiers fled for their lives. Quick, You go quickly, Ver said to the commanding soldiers. The officers and soldiers rushed for their lives, and hurriedly escaped in the small boats of the warship. Several officers rushed to Ver's side. Commander Ver, hurry up and leave. The fleet cannot live without your command, the officers said. Ver looked at the warship that was about to sink, gritted his teeth and said, "We have tried our best. Today is the end of the victory flag, and there is nothing we can do. Let's go." Ver immediately rushed towards the rear of the deck. Now the victory banner is already leaning heavily towards the sea to the left. Ver rushed to the back of the deck with all his strength, and the officers also followed. Here Ver personally opened the chain device at the stern and untied the ship behind the stern. "Commander, this is it." "Isn't this the ship of those young pirates?" said an officer. "Yes, they entrusted this to me, and we can also use this boat to escape." "Let the remaining lifeboats be used by the soldiers," Ver said while working. The officers also helped, and quickly removed the iron chains tied to the melee. The banner of victory tilted more and more violently. This large warship is already tilted close to 90 degrees. At the last moment, Ver and the officers and soldiers jumped onto the deck of the melee at the stern. After the violent tremor, the victory banner sank completely into the sea. Ver and the surviving officers and soldiers watched the doomsday of the warship on the deck of the Mary. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 142. The huge hull of the victory banner sank into the rolling sea. Ver and the officers beside him took off their hats to pay tribute to the former flagship. The enemy is still very strong now. They are completely in an advantage, making it difficult for us to deal with them. Hurry up and transfer to the remaining warships, Ver gave an order. The officers and soldiers who were temporarily staying on the melee hurriedly steered the melee to the remaining warships. The melee sailed onto a warship named the Hercules. Ver and the surrounding officers hurried onto the warship. "Commander Ver, what to do with this ship?" asked an officer. Ver looked at the Mary again, and said, "Send some people to send this ship to the port. Such a small ship will not be attacked by the opponent." Following the order, several officers and soldiers steered the melee to the port shore. There in the port, Rog, Saran, Usopp, Luffy and Chopper all witnessed the end of the mighty warship victory banner. The powerful warship that carried everyone before is now dead at the bottom of the sea. "What a terrible attack," Usopp said in shock, his face was covered with sweat. "Such a big warship actually sank to the bottom of the sea," Chopper said with emotion. "It's so spectacular," Luffy kept exclaiming. "By the way, the melee seems to be still tied to the stern of that warship," Saran said suddenly. "By the way, Mary," Usopp immediately jumped up in shock. Usopp looked nervously at the silent position of the victory banner. He then shouted, "Mary!" Usopp's shout was earth-shattering, and his tears were squeezed out. "Wait, buddy!" Suddenly Roger came up behind Usopp and tapped him on the shoulder. "The Mary has sunk to the bottom of the ocean." "You know how strong those chains are," Usopp said sadly. Rog looked calm, pointed at the sea and said, "Please, take a look there." Usopp raised his head and saw on the sea, a sail with the pattern of the Straw Hat Pirates and a wooden boat in the shape of a sheep's head heading towards the port. "Mary, you didn't sink!" Usopp jumped up in surprise. The Mary came and stopped at the port. Several officers and soldiers above jumped down, and Usopp rushed up to hug the ship. "Mary, I love you so much!" Usopp hugged the mainmast of the Mary and cried with joy. Chopper also happily jumped onto the Mary. Rog started talking with the officers and soldiers who jumped down. "Excuse me, everyone, how is Vance? Is he okay?" Rog asked quickly. "Commander Ver ordered us to send this ship to the port." "Ver, he went to the Hercules and continued to command the battle, an officer replied. Roger finally breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this. That's good, Roger said. At the same time, Rog also saw a large number of small boats full of fleet soldiers arriving at the port. After the victory banner was sunk just now, the officers and soldiers on the warship used small boats to escape. Some of them went to other warships, but many of them were gliding towards the port. More and more small boats used by fleet soldiers to taxi and rescue have arrived here. Rog looked at the sky again. 2 armed airships were still in the sky bombarding the warships on the sea below. The 2 armed airships attacked almost every warship with volleys of guns. Even if it can't cause damage to the warships, it can at least destroy the deck and some weapons and disrupt the command. Create a real opportunity for later launching anti-ship torpedoes. Air-armed airship No continued to perform fire cover missions in the sky. This time it was air-armed airship No that began to lower its altitude. Airship continued to descend, finally reaching a height of 200 meters above the sea. Inside the pod of the Airship 2. Mother's Day is now about staring out the window very seriously. The surrounding pilots also drove the airship with extreme caution. Mother's Day, sir, we have dropped to a height of 200 meters above the sea. We can launch anti-ship torpedoes, a pilot reported. Okay, we now have an anti-ship torpedo, but it needs to be used accurately. Prepare the target. This time, each enemy warship will release an anti-ship torpedo, Mother's Day ordered. The driver and weapon operator released another anti-ship torpedo according to the distance from the enemy warship. An anti-ship torpedo began to slide on the sea again, quickly rushing towards a warship. This time it was the warship Blue Coral. This meter-long warship couldn't dodge in time and was hit by this anti-ship torpedo. With a loud noise, a big hole was blown out of the side hull of the Blue Coral. Suddenly turbulent water poured into the cabin. But this warship is huge after all, and although an anti-ship torpedo is also powerful, it cannot immediately sink this warship into the sea. But after suffering this anti-ship torpedo, the Blue Coral was already in chaos. Captain, the right rear hull was hit and severely damaged. Our warship has come to a standstill in the command room, an officer reported to the captain. Hurry up and let the craftsmen on the ship make urgent repairs. And prepare to evacuate the crew, the captain quickly gave the order. The Blue Coral suffered heavy damage, but the sinking was mitigated by emergency repairs and isolation of the cabin. However, in this case, it basically lost the ability to sail and became a fixed target at sea. In Pod 2 of the Airship. Mother's Day was a joy to see a successful hit on an enemy warship. Okay, attack the next warship quickly, Mother's Day gave the order. After the armed airship No was calibrated, it launched a second anti-ship torpedo. This black anti-ship torpedo was launched into the sea from under the belly of the pod. With the mechanical power before launching, it can shoot at a warship at a speed exceeding any sea fish. The warship attacked this time was the killer whale, which was the same size as the Blue Coral. Some officers and soldiers on the deck of the Orca saw an unknown object from the left front of the warship, setting off waves and rushing towards it. What is this? It's so scary. It can explode. Hurry up and turn the steering wheel. The victory banner was hit by this terrifying weapon before. In the pilot house of the Orca, the captain ordered an emergency turn of the rudder. But it was too late. With a loud noise, the anti-ship torpedo hit the left front side of the Orca. The hull, including the command room, vibrated violently. The powerful bomb on the top of the anti-ship torpedo exploded, piercing the hull made of strong steel. A big hole appeared on the left front side where it was hit, and sea water poured in crazily. In the command room, the captain quickly asked, "How is it, the damage to the warship after it was hit?" It was the supply warehouse that was hit. A big hole was blown out in that area, which was as big as a room. And the supply room was not easy to waterproof, an officer reported. Since it was the supply room that was hit, the structures there were not easily isolated. Therefore, the front end of the entire warship quickly began to sink rapidly, and the rapid sinking finally barely stopped after the supply room was filled. The bow of the killer whale tilted forward sharply, and the entire warship also came to a standstill. Both the blue coral and the killer whale were lucky. The previous Victory banner was severely damaged after being hit by 4 anti-ship torpedoes at once, but it was also because the anti-ship torpedo detonated the huge arsenal in the middle and lower part of the hull, causing the hull to sink within a few minutes. However, these two warships have also become fixed targets. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 143. Air-armed airship No successfully launched 2 anti-ship torpedoes, damaging both the Blue Coral and the Killer Whale, forcing the 2 warships to stop their operations. Inside the pod of airship, I am very happy on Mother's Day. Very good. 2 large enemy warships were damaged. Now the enemy only has 5 warships left. Let them all be damaged. Prepare to attack again, Mother's Day said happily. But at this moment, shells were fired one after another. These shells passed under the air-armed airship too. The remaining warships began to counter-attack with powerful artillery. Mother's Day. The enemy warships are using artillery to attack us crazily. We may not be able to stay here any longer, a pilot reported urgently. Although the 2 warships were successfully damaged, the air-armed airship No was also bombarded by the remaining warships under the command of Ver. There's no other way, just accept it and raise it as soon as you see fit. Mother's Day gave the order. Full speed ascent, the fastest ascent of the airborne armed airship No. The chemical gas turbine mechanism in the pod connected to the oval airbag above quickly produces more hot air. In addition, air-armed airship No also used the side platoon to cover the rise, and the side shooting disrupted the opponent's attack. In the sky, air-armed airship No is fully covering the climb of air-armed airship No. After a full climb, air-armed airship No returned to the sky thousands of meters above. On the surface of the sea, the 5 warships commanded by Ver continued to sail, sailing irregularly to avoid being attacked. On the deck of Hercules, Ver looked up at the sky. Moaned for a while. He turned his attention back to the damaged Blue Coral and Killer Whale. In such a short period of time, we lost 2 more main warships, Ver said regretfully. An officer next to Ver took 2 telephone bugs and said, Commander Ver, the captains of the Blue Coral and the Orca want your instructions. Okay, give it to me. Ver took the receivers of the 2 phone bugs. Hey, Blue Coral and Killer Whale, I'm Commander Ver. Now I have seen that your warship has been severely damaged. Now it is unable to sail, and it will only serve as a fixed target if it continues like this. So I order you to quickly abandon the warship, and quickly take the rescue boat to other warships or ports, Ver ordered decisively. The captains of both warships accepted the order. Yes. Obey. Now everyone knows that if they continue to stay on the 2 severely damaged warships, they will have to wait for death, and soldiers are the most valuable living force, so they did not hesitate to abandon the warships. The decks of the Blue Coral and the Killer Whale quickly lowered the rescue boats to both sides, and groups of officers and soldiers jumped onto the boats to escape. In the sky, air-armed airship No and air-armed airship No were already ready to launch guns and aimed at the 2 warships stopped below. In the pod of airship 1.6 looked at the 2 stopped warships below and said, Mother's Day did a great job just now. This way we can kill all the enemies. Now, let's start bombarding the 2 incapacitated warships. After the order was issued, the left side of the armed airship began to tilt downward, aiming at the Orca. Accompanied by a row of flames flickering, and a sound that shook the sky. 10 shells were fired. After this round of artillery attack, the armed airship No regained its balance, then turned around again, and then tilted its right side downwards, aiming at the Killer Whale. Another row of powerful shells was fired, and 10 powerful shells were fired at the Killer Whale below. In addition to air-armed airship No. Air-armed airship No is also constantly shelling. However, the armed airship No shelled the blue coral. On the sea surface, the killer whale and the blue coral, which were already paralyzed, were continuously hit by shells. Originally, the two warships were already severely damaged, but now they are even more shaky after being bombarded for such a period of time. The wood, steel, and weapons on the hull were scattered in all directions. Some officers and soldiers who hadn't had time to evacuate were also blown to pieces. Fortunately, Ver issued the order very early, which made most of the officers and soldiers evacuate. Of course, there are also some soldiers who boarded the lifeboat but were unlucky. A lifeboat with more than people on board had just left the Orca warship. But he was hit by a cannonball that deflected from the sky. Although the shells did not hit the Orca nearby, they unfortunately focused on the lifeboat. There was an explosion and blood and flesh flew everywhere. Except for 3 or 4 of the more than officers and soldiers who were blown up and fell into the water after being rescued, the rest were buried in the sea. Under the fierce shelling, the blue coral and the killer whale finally sank completely into the waves. Ver, who was on the Hercules Poseidon, was so angry that he gritted his teeth and stamped his feet. Our 3 warships have sunk into the sea, and the enemy is still unharmed. Ver clenched his fists angrily, with endless hatred in his heart. Ver looked at the sky with incomparable hatred, and after forcibly calming himself down, he rethought how to deal with the enemy. At this critical moment, suddenly a lifeboat came over. It contains Rog and Saran. On the rescue boat, Rog and Zorro paddled together, constantly approaching the Hercules warship. At the same time, Rog took out a phone bug and started communicating. Verse, I'm Rog. Now we are on the left rear side of your warship. We need to board the warship to discuss the battle with you, Rog said. Roger, do you have any idea? Ver asked. We have it, but please let us board the warship before discussing the battle, Rog said. Now Rog and the others are no less than life-saving straws for Ver. I'll order people to help you come up immediately, Ver said. However, on the left rear side of the Hercules, the reinforced rattan whip thrown by Rog tied the side of the ship, bringing himself and Saran up. Ver also quickly reached the stern of the ship and joined Rog and Saran. Everyone, we are now at a critical point of life and death. So please help us win the battle, Ver said very seriously and sincerely. No problem, that's what we're here for, Rog said firmly. Stop talking nonsense, let's start quickly. The 2 airships in the sky are still firing non-stop, Saran said. In the sky, 2 armed airships continued to attack. Although I haven't found an opportunity to continue launching anti-ship torpedoes, a certain amount of shelling can also disrupt the opponent. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 144. Rog and Saran were talking to Ver on the deck of the Hercules. Ver, the problem we are currently facing is that 2 enemy airships are attacking us with air superiority. But they have a very well-known weakness, Rog said. Ver said with a very serious look, weakness. In order to use some kind of advanced weapon, the enemy's airship needs to lower its altitude for weapon delivery, Rog said. Ver and the others naturally know this, because the armed airship needs to lower its altitude to launch deadly anti-ship torpedoes. Then what do you mean? Ver continued to ask. It was at that time that Saran and I made a fatal attack, Rog said. It's a very good idea, but how can we help you? Ver said. This is the key issue. It is necessary to create opportunities to lure the 2 airships down together as much as possible. Otherwise, after one is caught, the other will no longer be hooked, Rog said. Ver looked at the sky again, and now the 2 armed airships were still wreaking havoc. Since Rog has a way to deal with them all at once, let's do what Rog said. Now there is no other way. Okay, please tell me. How to do it, Ver said. Rog continued to ask some more about the attack on the 3 warships just now, to learn more about the details. It turned out to be like this, then we can do it like this. First of all, in order to attract each other, we lit fireworks on the decks of various warships, pretending to be hit by enemy shells and catching fire and being seriously injured. At the same time, we continued to sail irregularly, and even brought some chaos, disturbing the opponent's judgment. In this case, the chances of the opponent being attracted can be said to be astonishingly high, Rog said. Ver also modified some details after listening to it, and finally planned to carry out the lure operation. Soon after, thick smoke rose again on the decks of the Hercules and the other 4 remaining warships. In fact, some flammable substances were used to burn in a makeshift stove. However, these flames were strictly controlled. Although a lot of smoke and dust were produced, they did not really cause too much damage. In the sky, inside the pod of the air-armed airship No. Mother's Day quickly discovered the huge smoke rising from the warships below. Mother's Day, the warships below were on fire and filled with black smoke after being hit, a pilot reported. Really, it's really a joy, Mother's Day said in her unique ladylike accent. Mother's Day, the 5 enemy warships below are not only emitting thick black smoke, but also sailing in more chaos. Just now, 2 warships almost collided, another pilot said, UN Hue reports. On Mother's Day, we also used the precision telescope equipment for observation below in the pod to carefully observe the donated buildings below. In the field of vision of the telescope, the 5 warships in the sea below are already in chaos. In addition to the smoke and chaotic voyage, some soldiers escaped by jumping into the sea. Some life-saving boats had already been lowered, and many soldiers jumped onto them in a panic. They are really dying, I sighed after watching Mother's Day. The scene below is indeed what a defeated army looks like. At this time, a driver asked her again, Mother's Day, what should we do next? Is there anything else about this? Just sink them completely. But I think that although the decks of these warships have been damaged, they may still have a chance to repair them, so I will launch anti-ship torpedoes now, Mother G said. However, in order to fight with maximum efficiency, Mother's Day still contacted Airship 1. Inside the pod of Airship 1.6 also saw what happened to the warships below. He made the observations himself with a sophisticated telescope facility looking out to sea below. The 5 warships below were full of thick smoke, and sailed in a very chaotic manner, and they almost collided many times. There are even many officers and soldiers who escaped from the warship. No matter how you look at it, it is already on the eve of collapse soon. At this moment, a pilot suddenly reported, Sir, Airship 6 has sent an emergency communication. Point 6 said quickly, okay, contact them. Then he took the phone bug's receiver. Mother's Day, what's going on? 6 asked. Point 6, you have also seen it? The enemy warships below are all in chaos, Mother's Day said. Yes, I saw it. The 5 enemy warships have been seriously damaged and are in chaos, Point 6 said. But don't you think now is the best time to give them a fatal blow? Although they are in chaos now, these warships only suffered serious damage on the deck, and they can still put out the fire and repair it. So, we took the opportunity to give them the most powerful attack. 2 armed airships launched anti-ship torpedoes together, so that they would all sink into the sea, Mother's Day said. Point 6 was silent for a while and said, you are right, but I feel something is strange and wrong. If you think so much now, you will miss a good opportunity. Act quickly. They can also destroy their warships and fight back against us. And with their warships destroyed like this, there is no way to fight back. Don't give your opponents a chance to breathe, Mother G said quickly. Under the urging of Mother's Day, Point 6 finally made up her mind. After all, this opportunity does not come under all circumstances. Maybe the 5 warships below are really able to fight back after the fire is extinguished in a while. Okay, I'll take action immediately. Two armed airships will launch anti-ship torpedoes at the general below. Point 6 said. Finally, a consensus was reached on the battle plan, and the two armed airships lowered their altitude towards the sea below. On the deck of the Hercules, thick smoke was billowing everywhere because of the burning of those flammable substances. But Rog, Sauron, and Ver stood on top of a tower. From here, you can still clearly see the descending height of the two armed airships above the sky. Their height has really dropped, Ver said happily, looking up at the sky. Rog also looked at the sky, and said very happily, really, they really took the bait. Zorro also looked at Rog excitedly, and said, Rog, your brain is really easy to use. Ver looked at Rog again and asked, Rog, if that's the case, then what should we do next? You continue to lure the enemy, and Sauron and I are responsible for dealing with them, Rog said. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 145. Two armed airships landed quickly. Sauron, it's time for us to act now, Rog said. Okay, now it's up to you, Sauron said. Roger took out a branch with a pair of wings on it. Rog held the wing-like branch tightly with both hands, and the plant fruit ability in his body began to operate. Tree wings. Rog sent out an astonishing green light with his hands. Plant fruit energy is constantly infused into this branch. With the green light, the branches began to grow bigger, and they really grew like a pair of wings. Only those branches are the skeleton, and those leaves are the feathers. The wings of the trees really grow like a pair of huge wings. Ver and other officers and soldiers on the side were dumbfounded. After releasing enough plant fruit energy, Rog breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally okay, Rog said, wiping the sweat from his forehead with his hand. The tree wing in front of me is a wing with a spread of 5 meters. Although it is not very big, it condenses amazing fruit energy inside. And the structure is so precise that it looks almost indistinguishable from the appearance of real bird feathers. Rog carried the tree wings behind his back. After the tree wings are carried on their backs, they can move like real wings. Rog instantly turned into a birdman. I can fly with this. Rog tried hard to manipulate the tree's wings to flap his wings. The two pairs of huge wings were quickly used flexibly. Rog looked at Ver and the others again and said, okay, we're going to attack. I wish you success, Ver said solemnly. Rog flapped the tree wings behind him, and the whole person flew up, while Sauron grabbed Rog's feet with both hands, and brought him into the sky together. Rog took Sauron and flew into the sky together, rising continuously. Sauron firmly grabbed Rog's feet and asked, hey, buddy. You don't think you can't bear it, do you? No problem, now I'm used to these wings, Rog said while flying. Rog took Sauron and flew to about 200 meters in the sky. Rog first looked towards the north. An armed airship had already descended to a height of 200 meters above the sea. Rog first took Sauron to fly towards the armed airship. The armed airship in the air keeps getting closer and descends faster. At the same time, Rog increased the height appropriately and worked hard to control the tree wings on his back. In this extremely dangerous battlefield, it is urgent to maintain high-speed flight and maintain stability, which can be said to be very difficult. Roger concentrated on maintaining his flight. The pair of tree wings on his back need to be constantly and strictly manipulated after the transformation is completed. In this situation, if you don't pay full attention, you may fall into the sea. In the end, Rog successfully brought Sauron above the airbag of the armed airship. Sauron, the next step is up to you, Rog said. Leave it to me, Zorro said boldly. At the same time, Sauron released his hands from Rog's footsteps and fell onto the airbag below. Rog quickly turned around and flew towards another air-armed airship in the south of the fleet, and that air-armed airship also landed. Rog cut air currents in the sky at an astonishing speed. He could no longer care about it. If the other party noticed it again and rose rapidly, then his pair of tree wings might not be able to withstand it. Rog quickly passed over the fleet and flew towards another armed airship in the south. Sauron landed on the oval airbag above the armed airship, and quickly drew out his dual knives. Now Zorro holds Yukaizu with his left hand and Onitsu with his right hand. Here, you can kill as much as you want. Sauron showed a powerful expression on his face, which was the momentum before the attack. The airship under Zorro's feet is the air-armed airship No. In the pod below, neither Mother's Day nor the pilots realized that they were about to face disaster. They are still concentrating on preparing to launch anti-ship torpedoes. Zorro, who was on top of the huge oval airbag, finally had a cold light flashing in his eyes, and his whole body started to fly together with the two swords. Zorro kept wielding his double knives, and his whole body moved together. Meters of flowers opened huge openings on the huge oval airbag. A large amount of hot air rushed out, and the huge oval airbag deflated quickly. In the pod below, Mother's Day and other pilots were shocked. The airship suddenly began to fall and shake violently. What happened? Mother's Day shouted in shock. This fat woman's whole body was rolling like a bowling ball. The entire pod was shaking violently. Those drivers and weapon operators were all staggered and unable to move. The oval airbag above the pod has now turned into a huge deflated balloon under Sauron's powerful double knife swing. Seeing that the oval airbag below was scrapped, Sauron stopped entanglement, but stopped swinging the double knives. With two clear sounds of metal friction, the two samurai swords were retracted into their scabbards. It's that simple, Zorro whispered. The armed airship in the sky is unbelievably powerful. But once the airbag above is destroyed, it will be fatally injured. However, destroying the airbag is not something ordinary people can do. The oval airbag above uses special synthetic fibers. Even if it is hit by artillery, it may not be able to destroy it. At best it hurts. However, Zorro's double swords and arm strength, coupled with his superb swordsmanship, destroyed the oval airbag just like chopping melons and vegetables. The pod, which lost the lift of the airbag, quickly fell into the sea below together with the remains of the airbag. Sauron on the pod also quickly jumped out of it and swam in the sea. Sauron swam towards the nearest warship. Among the pods under the wreckage of the armed airship, this pod made of metal and fine wood is rapidly sinking to the bottom of the sea. Water quickly entered the pod, and it was about to turn into a steel coffin. On Mother's Day, she rushed to the hatch and opened it with her own efforts. What's going on? It stuck so well. Mother's Day looked fierce and pulled out a shotgun from her luxurious dress. Aim at the lock on the hatch and shoot hard. The shotgun was so powerful that it forcibly blasted the lock of the hatch and the hatch open. Hurry up and swim out from here on Mother's Day. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 146. Although Mother's Day is fat, she is very flexible when swimming. She quickly broke through the sea. Some other crew members also swam out of the pod one after another. However, Mother's Day didn't care about them at all. Instead, she swam towards a nearby warship. On the other side, Rog has already flown to the vicinity of air-armed airship No in the southern direction. However, in the pod of the airship 1.6 and other pilots immediately discovered the problem after the airship 2 just to the north was destroyed. Point 6 immediately ordered to stop launching anti-ship torpedoes and quickly raise the level. The air-armored airship 1 quickly began to climb. At the same time, the machine guns on the side of the pod began firing in Rog's direction. Rog raised the altitude sharply, and these machine guns were lucky to react a little later, allowing Rog to fly to the oval airbag above the air-armed airship No. On top of the oval airbag, Roger stood on it. Phew, finally we're up there. Roger took a breath, and then moved his arms to prepare to attack. Roger pulled out a very sharp plant with jagged teeth. Okay, Hardwood saw blade Rog continuously transferred the plant energy in his body to the plant. The plant grew rapidly and turned into a huge, serrated, powerful blade 2 meters long. The appearance is similar to many large knives. Although it was transformed from plants, its hardness is comparable to or even stronger than real steel blades. Rog held the big knife tightly with both hands, and began to slash towards the oval airbag below. This blade was extremely sharp, coupled with Rog's great strength, it was directly cut open. The hot air inside the hole quickly leaked out. Rog continued to swing the hardwood saw blade and cut open the lower airbag while flying up. The airbag below was quickly cut open by Rog in a straight line, and the hot air inside gushed out. The place where the oval airbag is connected to the pod has a mechanism that can replenish hot air, but how can the replenished hot air compare with the lost hot air? This huge oval airbag, 50 meters long, was finally cut open by Rog almost to the same length. This opening quickly caused all the hot air inside to escape. The pod below also fell rapidly. Rog wielded the hardwood saw blade, and the wings of the trees behind him flapped, flying in the sky. "Done," Roger said happily. The pod below and the wreckage of the airbag finally fell into the sea together. Air-armed airship No was also successfully destroyed. The pod also sank into the sea. In the pod, Point 6 shook his fist and smashed the reinforced glass of the airship with one punch, and rushed out together with the other crew members. Point 6 finally swam out of the sea. This dull-looking, but burly man looked up at the sky above. "I saw that it was Rog who attacked the airship just now." Rog also saw the Point 6 below, and his eyes became serious. "You bastard, how dare you destroy my airship like this?" Point 6 roared coldly. Rog looked down and said, "You are from the Baroque studio. It seems that you are also a general." "Thank you for the compliment, but I'm going to kill you," Point 6 roared. Point 6 roared for a while, and then the burly man started swimming feverishly and began to swim towards a warship nearby. Rog looked at the Point 6 below. This man's swimming was really amazingly fast, and it was obvious that he was someone with some skills. Soon the man rushed to a nearby warship, which was the Hercules. There was also a cable on the side of the Hercules to lower the lifeboat. The Point 6 rushed over and climbed onto the warship as quickly as a monkey climbing a tree. Point 6 rushed onto the warship. He glanced with dull eyes and found that although the place looked smoky, it was actually a part of the man-made stove that was burning thick smoke into the sky. "Sure enough, it was fake and deceived us," Point 6 said. However, Point 6 who boarded the warship was quickly surrounded by several officers and soldiers. When several officers and soldiers saw this burly man with an upper body, they all realized something was wrong and gathered around him. "Who are you? Look at the pattern on his arm. He is from the Baroque studio. Catch him quickly." After several officers and soldiers discussed it, they attacked together. 6. Point 6 The upper body, which is full of muscles, moves quickly. Knock down each enemy with his skillful boxing skills. In a few seconds, all 5 soldiers were defeated, and the last officer pointed a pistol at his heart and shot him. This shot hit the Point 6 in the heart. But what made this officer's eyes so frightened that he was about to fall out of his head was that the bullet only dented the muscle on the left side of the heart of Point 6, and then was ejected. Point 6 The muscles around the viscera area of the left chest are dented to an area the size of a bullet. He gently rubbed it with his hands, and the muscles returned to their original shape. "Sorry, I have practiced Vajra indestructible body," Point 6 said with a sinister face. Point 6 One punch knocked the officer away and flew out into the sea. At this moment, a figure flew over and grabbed the army. "It's you," Point 6 said fiercely. It was Rog, who was rescued by the general in time with a pair of tree wings behind him. The rescued officer also looked at Rog in surprise. He also knew Rog, and he was there when Rog flew up with tree wings. The officer was trembling and said to Rog, "Thank you so much." Rog put the officer on the deck, then turned around and flew to the front of the point 6. Rog and point 6 looked at each other, and Rog could feel the seemingly stupid but extremely fierce aura from this man. "Hey, I haven't asked you yet. What's your name?" point 6 asked. "My name is Rog, what's your number?" Rog asked. Point 6 said coldly, "Point 6. Point 6 clenched his fist, and the fist made a crisp sound for a while. He moved his head and body again, and there was a sound of bone making. "I don't want to say anything else, I just want to kill you," point 6 said viciously. "I don't have anything to say, but you don't have the ability," Rog said tit for tat. Point 6 immediately waved his fists and assumed a fighting posture. Roger tightly held the hardwood saw blade in his hands. The two people's eyes met, but Rog's was sharp and full of sunshine, while point 6 was dull but fierce. "Look at the iron fist combo." 6. The whole person rushed towards Rog and quickly launched a series of powerful punches. Rog slashed at him with a big knife in his hand, but the enemy in front of him seemed very flexible, dodging his own knife, and the opponent hit him on the shoulder with a punch from the side. The punch was so powerful that Rog felt like he was being hit by an iron fist.